Welcome back to Gundam HQ. Today we're going to be discussing the new Gundam Breaker Japanese beta and my initial impressions, both positive and negative, along with various specifics with footage to showcase just what I mean. The first thing we're going to be taking a look at in this game is its presentation. New Gundam Breaker takes a very different approach to activity selection than previous Gundam Breaker games. You'll notice that this time around there is a menu instead, where you select which particular thing you'd like to do, be it building your mobile suit, playing single player, etc., and then you're taken directly to it. For those of you who haven't played previous Gundam Breaker games, they instead put you in as a character to run around in your favorite Gundam-related costume to different stands to select what you'd like to do, with your mobile suit standing at its full size before you instead of as a Gunpla on your desk. While both have their merits, I definitely have a preference towards the previous Gundam Breaker games in this regard. Though this is completely opinion, and the menu structure itself in New Gundam Breaker doesn't have any noticeable setup problems for the beta. However, the menus in New Gundam Breaker have a few serious issues related to lag and loading times. In fact, the game in general suffers from these two issues. For example, we'll take a look at loading up the Gunpla setup menu in New Gundam Breaker. It takes a decent amount of time to load in, and it doesn't load in very smoothly. When it finally loads in, it takes a while for it to be able to actually register any inputs at all. I'm changing selection the instant that I can, and even then it's a long wait. When compared to Gundam Breaker 3, you could be in and out of this menu in less than half the time. And before I continue, I know that this is a beta of New Gundam Breaker, and not the full game. But the issue with that is that the beta did come out only a few days ago, and the full game itself is coming out in just a few days as well. Meaning that this beta is much more of a demo than an actual beta. And we can only assume that they would want to put out a recent, near-finished version of the build in order to allow players to actually get a taste of what the game will be like. It is possible that this is an earlier build of the game, but I really question why they would do that. And I also know that comparing this to the previous Gundam Breaker games may not be an exact science, as New Gundam Breaker did break away from the previous titles, branching off into its own series of sorts with different focuses. But it still does share in being a Breaker game, meaning that the basics of each game should be able to be compared. Continuing with presentation, we have the in-game launch cutscenes as an example of something else I think definitely needs some polish. Looking at it frame by frame, you'll notice that the cutscene starts with your mobile suit not even being present. Then it appears blurry and facing the wrong direction for a few frames before entering its correct position. And results vary every time a launch sequence starts, though they never start correctly. Overall, the scene itself has some issues with sound and camera direction, with the camera panning well behind your mobile suit at an odd angle, your mobile suit clipping in and out of frame multiple times, and an absence of mobile suit sound after going through the portal. All this combined makes a scene that definitely could use some work. In-game performance is also worse when compared to Gundam Breaker 3. While both can suffer from frame rate drops, I found that the new Gundam Breaker beta suffered from many more while also throwing in freezes at multiple points. Next we move on to the bread and butter of these games, the mobile suit customization. Comparisons in this department are a little hard to do in terms of selection, as it is comparing a small section of a game to the entirety of one. In general though, New Breaker still holds up, allowing you to build a Gunpla that looks the way you want it to. In addition to this, it's already been confirmed that along the line, more series and mobile suits will get added to the game periodically, so your options will continue to grow past release date. There are a few notable changes, however, that I'll bring up. Build parts now act as cosmetics with stat boosts, when in Gundam Breaker 3, while some did only offer stat boosts, others added on additional weapons including swords, beam rifles, etc. In my opinion, this is definitely a downgrade. And the next point I want to make is the addition of frames, which assign burst types and burst attacks to your mobile suit, instead of allowing you to mix and match burst types and attacks as you wish, like in previous titles. And now we move on to another big part of the game, the gameplay. Overall, the game controls incredibly similar to the previous titles in the Breaker series, with light attacks, heavy attacks, boosting, ranged weapons, and other special abilities depending on your build. There are a few notable changes, however, that I'll be mentioning. In general, you'll notice that between games, the combat has been dramatically slowed down, and we'll talk more about what goes into that later. Before that, we have another few changes all tied to boosting. One of the best changes New Gundam Breaker makes is its decision to make horizontal boosting take up a lot less boost, so you can get around the stage much faster, though the vertical boost appears to be about the same. Another big change regarding boost was the removal of boost canceling. meaning that once you use a move, you commit to it and you cannot boost out of it, and that one boost you're seeing mid-combo is actually just part of the combo, meaning it happens automatically as you press the attack. Including boost canceling like in previous titles drastically improves your offensive and defensive options as a player while also making movement much more fluid at the same time. Another big problem is the removal of the heavy attack rushdown when in the air. In previous games, the heavy attack would rush down your enemies, aligning you with them and getting you closer, and if you press it again in the air, you'll attack and slam down, or if you're on the ground, you'll knock them up. While the ground functions the same way in New Breaker, there is no dash in the air, meaning that when you use it in the air, you'll slam down exactly where you are instead. This is also an issue as this happens at whatever height you're currently at, meaning that if you're even barely off the ground, even at points where you can't even tell you're off the ground, you'll dive down instead, leaving you incredibly vulnerable because as previously mentioned, boost canceling has been removed, leaving you a sitting duck who meant to charge forward but didn't realize they were a tiny bit in the air. With the speeds of attacks being slowed down and canceling being removed, the game also continues to slow down gameplay by adding in redlock to the series, meaning that when you knock enemies over, they go into a state where they are unable to be damaged until they get back up. Here's some example gameplay of me fighting this gun tank. He despawned before I could kill him. All of this tied together with overall laggy input detection, frame rate drops, and freezes can make it a struggle to get your mobile suit to do exactly what you want it to. One of the most prominent components of the game is a feature where you collect the parts of your opponents from off the ground, allowing you to change them out and equip them for new abilities. While I think it's a neat idea, I personally am not a big fan of it. In a game where you spend hours of your time designing a mobile suit that looks and plays just the way you like it, tearing it apart for random things you find on the ground just doesn't seem to fit. After years of hard work and dedication to my craft, my perfect Gundam has finally been completed. I shall call you disgusting. Just like in previous games, parts of your mobile suit can be lost. However, unlike in previous games, there aren't any tractor cables attaching them to you and slowly bringing them back, making it much harder to find them in the chaos. Though this was probably a design choice to further push the point that you can pick up and choose random pieces from off the ground. Overall, the beta for New Gundam Breaker has shown that the game is missing a lot of the necessary polish that it needs. As stated before, I understand that this is just a beta and not the full release, but the full release is coming out in just a few days, meaning that it's safe to assume that this beta is based off a relatively current build of the game, which also means that it's very likely similar to what we're going to be receiving come release date on the 22nd. As far as performance goes, from what I've heard, on PS4 Pro it doesn't run much better than the regular PS4, and we have no real word on the quality of the PC release. That being said, there are some things I'm looking forward to. The confirmed support with releasing new mobile suits periodically shows that they're most likely more than willing to help improve how the game runs later down the line, while also expanding the lengths to which we can customize our mobile suits. Another big deal is its PC release, as Gundam games on PC are almost unheard of compared to their console counterparts. And lastly is that it's part of an era where I can walk to a local game store and pick up a full English copy, which is something Gundam fans who have been waiting for English games don't take for granted. With all that said, I would recommend waiting to pick up New Gundam Breaker until we know how it runs in the full release and whether or not any potential issues get fixed. While you wait, I think that Gundam Breaker 3 will be a great way to pass the time while delivering that mobile suit creating experience most fans are looking forward to. Feel free to leave your personal thoughts on the game and whether or not you think you'll be picking it up on release day or waiting a little bit in the comments below. If you're looking for a place to talk about the Gundam Breaker series, learning the best way to pick up a copy of Gundam Breaker 3, Gunpla, or anything else Gundam related, feel free to check out the Gundam HQ Discord. We hold monthly Gundam Breaker design tournaments with the next one starting up very soon. If any of that sounds interesting to you, you can find the link to join in the description below. Also remember to subscribe to the channel and follow the Gundam HQ Twitter @GundamHQ for other Gundam Breaker, Gundam Versus, and other general Gundam content. And if you'd like, feel free to check out my other New Gundam Breaker beta video showcasing some uncut gameplay of the 3 vs 3 mode. I'm going to be picking up a copy of the game so that I can show off just what it has to offer, so look forward to that after release. You can also look forward to new videos in the Gundam Versus Is It Worth It series along with some other projects coming soon. Once again, thank you for watching, and this is Gundam HQ, signing off.